Hello, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome, guys, to my world of Insta conversations. I know it's been really long. I have not done a live stream, but I am back, and like always, I have a special guest in the house, and we are going to be talking about boundaries. Guys, boundaries are so important and so essential for our well-being, for our emotional, our mental well-being. And I think that this is such an important topic to talk on. Let me bring my special guest, and let's have this conversation to understand better why boundaries are so important for us. I am just connecting with her, and once she's on board, we will start our conversation. We are waiting to connect with her. Hopefully, today we will not have any technical issues and everything will go smoothly. Yes, she is here, and I am currently, it says I'm connecting with her. Okay, let me try this again. Guys, I am connecting with her. We have Dr. Annie coming in. She's a counselor, she is a coach, she's a therapist, and she is going to come in and we're going to have a discussion about having boundaries in your life and why it is so important to have healthy boundaries um, in your life, and you should not feel guilty about setting or having boundaries. Hello, everyone. I'm just connecting with Dr. Annie. I hope you're all well. And with the pandemic, everybody is safe, taking the measures that are required for their well being. Just got disconnected. Let me reconnect with her again.
Hello. We've done
Hello
it.
there.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I am splendid. I am so excited to have you and have this conversation with you on boundaries.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you and thank you for doing this. It's really nice. I'm glad we've got here.
Absolutely. So, Dr. Annie, let's just dive in our conversation and let's talk about boundaries. For a person like me, I would say a year and a half ago, I didn't know what boundaries are. I didn't know that having boundaries was so essential and important for one's self care and self existence. I
Yeah.
want you to shed some light on why boundaries are important for everyone and why one should not feel guilty about setting healthy boundaries for themselves.
Well, could we just scroll back a little bit? A year and a half, you didn't know about boundaries. Why do you think that was?
For me, I think it was more like a cultural thing. Coming from
Yeah.
Pakistan,
Yeah.
we are very close, and everybody's into everybody's business. So having boundaries even within your home was considered rude, disrespectful, especially if you
Yeah.
were the youngest one. That was considered really disrespectful if you wanted to sit alone in your room if you had guests at home and stuff like that. So for me, I didn't know what boundaries were,
Yeah.
or for a fact that if I wanted my space, that was setting healthy boundary for myself. I didn't know
Mm,
that. And
mm,
and and for me, I've struggled moving back to my country, wanting to have boundaries, and people not understanding where I had to disconnect with everybody to really ask myself, am I being selfish? And I was
mm,
like, actually, I'm not being selfish. It is
mm.
totally okay to want to be alone, whether it's for a month or 4 months or 6 months. And it's totally okay not to be part of celebrations because you don't feel it. And
Totally.
that so and then I realized that though uh, people could not relate to it in the beginning, slowly and gradually over the period of time, they understood why it was so important for me to set those
Mm,
healthy boundaries for myself.
hmm. I hear you. Yeah. And I just wanted to ask you, because I accept that it is a cultural thing and it's also not a cultural thing. It's also a fact that in an awful lot of families, families where people don't know where one person begins quite and another person ends, and that happened in my family too, and in many, many other families because of control issues, um, you grow up without boundaries. And the real point about not having boundaries is you really don't know where you end and another person begins. And you don't know how you carve out your own space in the world, how you get a sense of your own worth, um, and how you, as you pointed out, and how you feel justified in having your own feelings. So,
Mm,
boundaries are hugely important in defining who you are.
mm. Right, right.
Um, and without them, unfortunately, again, as you kind of outlined, you are at the mercy of other people who can invade your space, your physical space, your emotional space, and every kind of space because it's actually not your space.
Mm,
And if we are going to be healthy, we have to have our own space. We have to
mm,
have our own space and work out how we do connection. And
mm.
that's where boundaries come in.
Yes, absolutely. And Dr. Annie, I want to add on that. I'm a single mom of two kids, and my
Mm,
son's 4 and my daughter is 10. And one of the things I'd never realized being a mom from day one was that wanting time for myself made me a bad mom.
mm,
So, and for me to really understand that if I need 30 minutes or 1 hour or sometime a break from the kids, and if I said it out loud, it didn't make me a bad mom.
mm,
And I had to really come on terms with it. I would say around 9 months ago that okay, if I want to be the best mom and I want to be there for my kids, I need my space. And that does not make me selfish. That does not make me a horrible
mm,
mom. And I'm going to do that. So my
mm,
daughter being like almost 10 at that time, I had to really sit down and tell her that, listen, in the morning when I'm having my coffee, that's my time. So it's like I don't exist. I'm not in the home. So don't come
mm,
to me. I need
mm,
that morning time where I'm meditating or I'm having my coffee
mm,
to get my act together. Because if I get that space, whether it's 30 minutes, whether it's 1 hour, I will be more productive and I will be more there for you rather than being jittery towards you or not really listening to you or pretending that I'm listening to you.
mm.
I hope that makes sense to you.
It makes total sense. And it's another way of putting this thing about um, you have a duty to fill your self love tank. For a lot
Mm,
of us, that's quite difficult. But one of the bottom line things that we can do for ourselves is give ourselves that little bit of time to literally ground ourselves. You know,
mm,
that meditation, that cup of coffee, that sitting with yourself, that is grounding yourself in yourself, and especially being around children all the time, it is all about them. And you have to remember who you are. Also, you're not particularly serving them too well if you are this martyr person who only exists to serve children. You know, how are you going to teach them to have healthy boundaries? How are you going to teach them to be assertive if you're not doing that? So it runs counter to this whole guilt trip routine whereby, oh, you want something for yourself. That makes you incredibly selfish. It's not true, but that is always the block that we have with boundaries.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you. And I also realized one of the things that I've struggled with at my part of the world was that when I brought it up with people that it's okay to have boundaries, it's okay to say no, it's okay to not be there on family occasions. I got a lot of resentment, to be honest, and people were like, "What are you talking about? This is not our culture. This is not who we are." And I was like, that is okay, but we can always evolve and change for the better, because being so much on each other, we become toxic. And part of my self growth was that I left my country for 7 years, and I realized, and that's what I speak a lot about, that we're all toxic in one way or the other. The point is to realize and understand how we are and how we're going to change or stop that within ourselves before we expect the external environment to change. Because the thing is, we want everybody around us to change, but we're not willing to
Sure.
look within ourselves. And it was hard, because for me, I lived 35 years of my life thinking that everybody's toxic, but I'm not, because they do this to me and they do that to me. And then I had to really pause and say, no, I was brought up in an environment that was toxic. I am toxic. And I have to let go of that and learn and grow from that and realize and forgive myself that I didn't know anything better all my life, but now I know. And before asking, I you're back.
We've
I
done
lost
this
you
one
there.
before. Yeah.
Yes, I know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, there's a lot to deconstruct there. I mean, if you're brought up in an environment that was toxic, then I don't think you're toxic when you're unaware. But I do
Okay.
think that, and I think so that you are actually making the change, therefore you're not toxic. You were unaware, because what we grow up with in our home may be bad behavior. But if that's what appears to be the norm, that's how it's done. That's how we do it until we wake up and smell the roses and realize that we've got to do something different. I have to say that in my own family of origin, if I'd said, I'm not coming to family events because I just need my time and space, I'd have got very much the same response as you. Family comes first. You have to do these things, but I need my space. No, that's just not how it's done. And I'd have got, what will the family think? But
Exactly.
so different cultures, but this kind of thing I think is fairly common, and it is the collective totally dwarfs the individual, and the individual isn't really required to be an individual. But unfortunately, if it doesn't work for you, and I honestly think it doesn't work for most people now. Maybe culturally once upon a time we could have done that, but now we are aware that we do need our own space, our own voice, and therefore we have to create boundaries. And the difficult part, obviously, is how you create them and still feel good about yourself.
Absolutely. So tell me,
Yeah.
how do you create them and feel good about yourself?
Well, I think about thinking about yourself with your children, that my guess is that was actually relatively easy because your children had to see reason. And therefore, you created a boundary, and they fell into line because they have to accept it. And so it worked quite well, and you sort of went away from that and went, I can create boundaries, kind of thing. Yes, that
Yeah.
worked okay. So I think the answer is, although it probably didn't work so well for your parents or for the community, but so the idea with boundaries is that we always need to create boundaries, mostly with the difficult people in our lives. And they're going to be the hardest people to create the boundaries with normally, because you're frightened of their judgment. So you have to start small with the simple ones that people will accept it. So you start to get this internal awareness that you are justified in creating boundaries. If the first time you do it, it's a major one with a difficult partner or a difficult parent or someone who is a powerful figure in your life, and you say, right, I'm going to draw a line in the sand here, and they respond very badly and remind you how worthless they feel you are, then you learn the lesson, I'm not very good at creating boundaries. And that's just not true. It's the fact that you have tried to do too much too soon.
Right,
But the thing is, before that, there's ideally a whole lot of internal work that needs to come first. As I was thinking this, as people say to you, well, why don't you just create a boundary? And I love it when people say just, because what they're actually saying to you is, you've got a major job of work to do. I don't know how you're going to do it, but why don't you just arrive at this result? And it's like saying to someone who's had a lifelong weight problem, well, why don't you just lose 30 pounds or whatever? And there wouldn't be this multi-million-pound diet industry if it was as simple as just following a diet. For some people it is, but that's not the majority. The majority have weight on because really two things are going on. One is that they would just like to be thinner, but they don't really know how much better their life would be if they were, well, I could have the bikini body, sounds nice, but that's probably not enough to motivate most people. It's if I really felt that losing that weight would make me lovable, then it might be easy. But actually losing weight doesn't make anybody lovable.
True.
Yeah. So there's that part that, what will it give me? Because I'm not really sure that it will give me anything that's worth putting myself through this hell for. And the other piece is, well, why are they eating more than they need anyway? And people do that because they have previous problems in place. People comfort eat, people eat for all sorts of emotional reasons.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the same as why we don't have boundaries in place. We don't have boundaries in place because we were never told that we should have them. We were actually led to believe that having boundaries would be a mark of disrespect to family or selfishness or would make us horrible people. So there's this inner work of separating your worth from boundaries or not having boundaries and owning your right to actually be your own person. So there's a lot of programming that needs to be got rid of. Is this making sense?
Absolutely, it does. And I think that not having boundaries is basically teaching you that self-rejection is okay and is the way of living. So when you're self-rejecting yourself, when you're growing up with that, that's leading you to become toxic and accepting toxic environment, and that then leads to accepting abuse, emotional abuse, physical
Yes.
abuse, because then it just keeps on adding up and piles up till one day either you're gonna go explode and say what the hell's going on, or where the awakening happens, or you just, some people just don't know and they just live in that guilt their whole life, thinking, because the self-rejection started at a really earlier age.
Well, yeah. I mean, I still struggle with toxic. I mean, these are people who have been abused from an early age, saying, no, you do not have a right to be you. And so you learn that your best chance of being lovable is by trying not to be yourself and just pleasing other people desperately, which is self-sacrifice. You learn to be selfless. And that goes throughout every culture. I was talking with a client yesterday who was a Catholic, and that was exactly what she had learned. Selflessness was good, you know. Selflessness is next to godliness,
Wow.
kind of thing. Well, that's the kind of message that you can get. It runs through different cultures in different ways, but what it means is it keeps the family structure in place. And therefore, it is very difficult, and it does leave you open to abuse, because you know you have to do stuff, you have to be pleasing in order to be lovable, and you know that when the relationship isn't working, you just have to do more and be more selfless. And at a certain age, you kind of wake up and you go, well, who the hell am I anyway? Because I don't know the first thing about myself as a person, you know. I kind of know what I wear, I kind of know who my relatives are, or I know what job I do if I do a job, but who am I as a person, you know? What do I even like? What do I even want from my life? I'm desperately unhappy, but what do I want? And certainly that was me when I woke up in my abusive marriage after about 1,000,000 years, you know, sort of, okay, I can't go on with this anymore, but what lies ahead? Because who am I? What can I do? What are my strengths? What, you know, what do I want?
Right.
What would make me happy? And you have no
And
idea. Yeah.
right. And Doctor, don't you think that people don't want you to have boundaries because then they have the sense of power that they control you, and and
Yeah.
and and then the other question that I wanted to ask was that when, especially with kids, so you want to teach them, or they want their boundaries, where, how do as parents we find the balance where there are healthy boundaries, but there is also a place for discipline for children.
Discipline. You said the word discipline. It's, there's this, for me, there's this awful trend of parents being their children's best friends.
Okay.
And to me, that just doesn't work, because kids can have best friends and need to have best friends of their own age. You know, it's part of their development, but they do need someone who takes care of them. And that person does need to be a role model, does need to set boundaries for themselves and the children,
Okay.
so that children get a sense from an early age about where they end and another person begins. Now, I remember that when my daughter was little, we used to go and see people, and sort of when we left, we were well aware that if there are other children, that the other children will be told, go and kiss Auntie Annie, and kids do it. And I would always say to my daughter, do you want to kiss this person? Do you want to give them a hug? Because that's one of the early boundaries, you know. You're a child, but you have your own space, your own feelings. And if you don't want to do this, for whatever reason, it is not right for me to force you. So from that stage on, I was sort of giving my daughter the idea that you have the right to place some boundaries in your life. I will not be overstepping your boundaries and forcing you to do what you want. I will not be undermining your feelings. I will not gaslight you by saying, oh, so-and-so's lovely, you have to kiss them. If that's not your experience, I have to honor it. So,
Absolutely. I
so
think
yeah.
that the struggle is also because we were brought up and conditioned in a way, and we think that is the right way. And that's what I've struggled with my daughter. And I think that for me, I've always been with her like, why don't you do that? Why? And everybody's like, she's too young. What are you doing? And I'm like, I'm doing that because till 35 I couldn't make choices on my own. I needed like 20 people around me, and their advice, and they're like, okay, that makes sense, and I'm still confused because now I have 20 people's advice and I'm still at square one, which decision I'm going to take. So for me, I've struggled so much that I want her, okay, I tell her, you pick, what do you think? And they're like, she's too young. I said, I want her
She's
to
not.
know. I want her to know. And now I see that since she's become a grown-up girl, like she's 10, people around me can see that she is so different than their kids, because I've kind of given her that. I don't know if I've given her that space, to be honest, but I've put that pressure on her in a way that you have to make the choice. You have to pick. Like she's playing a game and she's asking me, which character should I be? And I'm like, why do you want my opinion? It's your game. You pick the character. So and I've seen that that's kind of brought that boost of confidence in her, where she's actually come and told me that I didn't love myself before, but now I think I do love myself.
Wow.
So I was like, and why do you say that? And she's like, I don't know, because I wanted to ask everybody all the time. And what they said is what I wanted to go with. Now she says, I can say what I want to say. And even if you say, oh, I don't like it, or anybody for that matter says, I don't like it, it doesn't put me in a place where I feel that I'm not worthy. Because now I know that I can have my own sense of choice or sense of decision, and it's okay to have the difference.
And she's 10.
She's 10 and a half.
That is a great achievement. You have taken her from a little people pleaser to a little individual person.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
one of the battles I had with my family, and I think is that children are small, but they're not stupid. And they have a clear sense of what they want and a clear intelligence if you just allow that to blossom. So she doesn't know everything at 10, obviously, but she has a clear sense of herself because you've allowed her to have that. And that is fantastic. That is breaking the mold.
Yes, because she was such a people pleaser. Like my sister could pick it up, and everybody, and coming from a home where the mom and dad are, we're separated. She wanted us to be happy, so she
Mm,
thought that if I kept my mom happy, maybe
mm,
the parents will go back. And then she's told me that I felt that my mom and dad have separated because of me. and
sure.
and I, and I was like, sweetheart, that is absolutely incorrect. We were together because of you, and it was never because of you that things were not
Mm,
working. So she thought that everything that went wrong in the family was because of her, because maybe she was not a good kid, or maybe if she did more to please her mom or dad, the parents wouldn't split. And I had to really sit down and talk to her, and that was a really emotional talk where I knew that
mm,
within 24 hours, she was a total different person, where she realized it was like her awakening moment that, oh,
mm,
that weight on her shoulder was put down, because now she knew that I had done nothing wrong.
mm,
And I was not the reason my parents have split, or the family has split.
mm. Yeah, it's huge. Yeah. And it's interesting that in the old model of parenting, you wouldn't have done that because
Mm-mm.
she wouldn't have needed to know. Should have just been meant to get on with whatever life you put there for her.
Mm-mm.
And you've done it very differently for her. And it works for her because she knows where she stands. She knows what her role is in the family. She's the child, she's the loved child, and she is not to blame for any breakdown.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
Yes.
most of us have some strange ideas about what our role is in the family.
Yes. We're very
Yes,
confused.
yes. Um,
Mhm.
and I was certainly brought up, and one of my major roles was to make my family look good. And the way I made my family look good was by not being me. I was meant to be this sort of presentable little robot who was wheeled out on public occasions. And that sounds insane. It sounds, like God knows, at least 100 years ago. But I'm afraid it's not that unusual that your children are meant to make you look good. You know, and
Right,
certainly
right.
narcissists do it to this day.
Poof. Oh, yes, they do. Yeah. We all know that now, don't we?
Yes, we
Yeah.
do. Yes. Narcissistic parents who only parent for the camera or the audience. Yeah.
Right, right. And Dr. Annie, one of the things I wanted to ask you was, do you think, like for you and for me, for example, do you think that for us going through the toxic or the narcissist marriage, or you know all that stuff, was necessary for us to really awaken and understand what was the the actual
Mm,
problem? Because you see, and I ask you because one of my friends asked me this question, and
mm,
she is like, Mewish, if you had the opportunity, and if God put this opportunity in front of you, that you could go back in time and change your life altogether,
mm,
change
mm,
everything, uh,
mm,
what would you change? And I know that she was expecting that I'll say, oh, my marriage was different, I was happily married.
mm, mm,
And I paused, and this was a few years ago, and I paused, and I said, nothing.
mm,
And she's like, nothing? And I said, yeah, nothing. And she's like, are you crazy? Why the hell would you change this? Like, what you're going through, like hell, and you're saying that? And I said, listen, when you asked me, it just clicked that if I went back and if I
mm,
changed everything, today I would be happily married, with my husband in my country, living a normal life. But not that I'm saying that it was good what I went through, but what I went through actually awakened me
mm,
towards the greater cause or whatever, to see where so many people are suffering, and I've changed. I know who I am. I didn't even know who I was then. And I
Sure.
was just playing that role. And I would have played that role my entire life, not knowing and encouraging being abusive or being toxic was okay. So I would never want to go back to that self, because going through that hell has awakened me in a way, which I feel is more like a blessing for me. And I know that, I don't know if that makes sense, but I
It,
think that, sorry, go ahead.
yeah. No, it makes perfect sense. Um, and I language it a little bit differently in that, well, in a sense that I have few regrets about my revolting marriage, except for the fact that if I'd had any sense, I'd have left sooner. But it worked
Mm,
well because I rolled out of it into coaching and found my way.
mm,
But so we, given the kind of upbringing we had, there was only going to be a rude awakening.
mm,
That was the only way it was going to work. We were some kind of, as my um, ex-husband would say, we were some kind of crash accident waiting to happen because we were programmed to end up in a bad relationship.
mm,
Everything pointed in that direction.
mm,
Um, and the other issue that I think about or the same issue which I think about from the other side, in terms of my lovely partner, who actually lived at one point just one or two suburbs down the road from where I was in London, and who went to the boys' school that mixed with the girls' school that I went to. And I was thinking, gosh, wouldn't life have been easier if we'd found each other then? Apart from the fact that
mm,
he's that bit older than me, so we're never in the same place at the same time. But the fact is, if I had met this lovely man then, we wouldn't have been a fit. He wouldn't
mm,
have liked me, and I wouldn't have been able to resonate with him, because I would have thought, oh, well, what kind of creature is he? Because I wouldn't have
mm,
understood, because I was looking for a different kind of home and a different kind of familiarity. I was looking
right.
for a
Mm,
replica of what I'd come out of, as we all do. So
mm,
it couldn't have been different, I don't think.
mm,
And basically, if my partner had met me, he'd have thought, I don't want to grow my own wife.
mm, mm,
So I don't think there was another way. Um, but I think that the journey that we have to go through to find ourselves, which is no credit to the abusive relationship, it's all credit to us, that's
mm,
a very rewarding journey. And when
mm,
I look at other people
absolutely.
going through it, I really feel it's a hero's journey.
Mm,
It's a phenomenal journey.
mm,
And I get
it is.
so proud when I see other
Mm,
people going through it. It's just, you
mm,
go, wow, that is so amazing.
mm, it
And it
is,
doesn't feel
yeah.
like a hero's journey when you're in the thick of
Yes.
it, does it?
Oh yeah, no, no. It feels like hell.
Yes.
It feels like hell. It
Yes.
feels like it's never gonna end, and you're miserable. You lose hope, and that is what I tell my clients as well, and just generally women who reach out to me, that it is gonna be okay, because for me, where I was 1.5, like exactly 1 year ago, actually, I'm totally different person. I'm totally
Mm,
reinvented myself,
mm,
and it's I, if I had given up on myself last year at this time because I was so miserable, hopeless, given up on myself, given up on life, nothing was gonna get better.
mm,
I was doomed,
mm,
doomed for it, and all that stuff.
mm,
And I I just said, oh, that would have been so sad, because look at where I am now. And although I'm not where I want to be, but where I am right now, I know that good things are in ahead of me now, and there is hope, and there is so much goodness for me. So I always tell people that it's okay if you can't see that, but just don't give up on yourself, because I didn't give up on myself, and I'm so thankful to God that I didn't, because today where I am, I'm so happy.
Yeah, it's a grueling journey, but it's a
Mm,
hugely rewarding journey. And I think the fun stuff is watching yourself unfold.
mm,
Um, in that you get on with your life, you do the best you can do, and every so often you do things and you think, whoa, where did that come from? I didn't know that I had that in me. And I think that's the most thrilling thing.
it is. Mm,
That
mm, mm,
amuses me all the time in myself and in my clients, that they just
mm.
do these things and you go, wow.
Yeah, mm, yeah, absolutely.
Um,
It
yeah,
is. It is.
yeah. And one of the things that I love to this day is thinking of that if my ex-husband saw me now, he wouldn't
Mm.
believe it. He certainly wouldn't like it.
Oh, right.
But
Mm,
I would be I would be enchanted. I really
mm,
would.
right, right, right. That
Because
is because you see, the old version of me was not comfortable being alone, being with myself, spending
mm,
time with
mm,
me. The new version of myself loves herself so
mm,
much that,
mm,
oh, I am in the best company. This is so great. And my friends reached out and said, you're weird. You like being alone. Like, don't you feel lonely? And I'm like, listen,
oh,
I've lived 35 years being lonely, being around people. Trust me,
mm,
this self-time, self-care is so amazing. And it's okay. I have my days
mm,
where I feel lonely, and it's okay. That's human. But the larger picture is that it is absolutely amazing
mm,
to be with yourself. And this 1 year, I have not achieved much, but my biggest achievement is being my self growth. Oh my God, I could actually just applaud myself,
mm,
because it is really phenomenal, the amount of growth you can have when you heal, when you understand, when you forgive yourself, when you forgive others. And I keep on thinking. Lately I've just really been thinking a lot, Dr. Annie, that where I was last year and where I am right now, it's absolutely mind-boggling,
mm.
because I never envisioned myself like this. Like, I could envision myself like this. And
Yeah,
I'm like, oh my
exactly.
gosh, now I want to go back to that old version of me and say, hey, you got this, girl.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and that's really why you never could have had that happy marriage before, because that you wasn't born yet, that you hadn't had to go through the fire to
Mm,
come into being. You know, yeah,
mm,
it shouldn't have to be that way, but it is.
mm,
And this lonely thing gets me. You know, I went, ooh, kind of when you
mm,
said that word, because
mm,
yes, loneliness is part of the human condition.
mm.
But at the same time, alone and lonely are two incredibly
Different.
loaded words.
Mm,
You know, sort of, but if I don't have this revolting husband of mine, I'll be alone. No, you'll have a
mm,
ton of possibilities that you don't have when you've got the loneliness of living with someone who actually leaves no space for you to exist.
mm.
There is no loneliness lonelier than being with someone who doesn't like you.
Right. And there's another one. People say, I did comment on your post also. I heard that a lot, and I hear women saying that a lot to other women is, why didn't you leave earlier when you knew? Okay, I could literally just sit and talk about it for a whole day and tell you why.
Mm, mm,
But I don't think so. You want to go down that lane with me because I know
mm,
by the end of the conversation, you still won't be convinced. So let's not have that conversation because people know why they didn't leave earlier or why they left at whether they were 50 or whether they were 30 or whether their kids were in college or all that. Uh, I see a lot of women in my country get that uh,
mm. But
really,
it's
really a resentment because
but it's yeah, it's so
you,
unkind.
it is because you see, somebody lately, she came to me and she said, I want to leave my husband, and she's what? She's in her like 50s, like
Mm,
late 50s, and I was like, that's great. And she's like,
mm,
really, you think so? Because people keep on saying now after 27 years or whatever, I don't know how many years of marriage you want to, like, and I'm like, yeah, so what? And she's like, yeah, people don't understand that because they're like, you spend half of your life with this man and now you want to walk away. And it's like literally hell with people. Maybe you did that because you wanted your kids to be secure, and now you feel that they're secure and now it's time to let go and enjoy your life. And she's like, absolutely, that was what I was thinking. I didn't have
mm.
the strength in me, to build up myself financially, and I was like, now my kids are taken care of. Now is the time to leave my man, enjoy my life. But people don't let me, and I was like, don't think what people, if you're going to think about what people are going to say, you're going to be stuck. Go ahead with it. uh,
Mm.
Take the divorce, enjoy your life. Your kids are independent, you're 54, go around, you have the money now, travel, do what you want to do. And that's really sad when people say, I don't know what they're thinking when they say that actually.
It's grossly insensitive because, I'm leaving my husband because I've had a thoroughly miserable life with him. He was abusive. Well, why did you stay so long?
Mm,
Wrong
mm,
question. The correct question is what, why would, he was abusive. What's
mm,
wrong with him?
mm, mm,
Not why did
mm,
you stay so long? That's just blaming the victim.
mm.
And we stay so long for so many bad reasons that seem
Bad
good at the
reasons.
time.
Mm,
But they are good at the time
they are
because we
absolutely.
think we're doing the right thing because we have
Mm,
no boundaries. And therefore, we think that if we just give enough, and put ourselves last, it will work.
mm,
And the other piece about boundaries, which I didn't mention, is that when you put boundaries in place, you force people to either go away or respect you.
mm.
Um,
Yes.
you don't earn respect by being selfless.
Mm, yes.
We think you do, but you don't.
Mm,
But when you put a boundary in place, people go, oh, okay, I get it. And they treat you that bit better, which is
mm,
showing you respect.
mm. That
Um,
that is absolutely so correct because Dr. Annie, I know. See, I am the youngest in my house and the
mm,
youngest in all my cousins.
mm,
So I'm still the baby of the family.
mm,
So the baby of the family needs to hear what she was hearing when she was 10. But no, I am not a baby. I'm a
mm,
mother, and my kids look at uh, how I'm being treated. And I bring my daughter in again because this is really funny because when I wanted to set my boundaries, I was terrified because I thought I'm going to lose my family, I'm going to lose my friends, I'm going to lose everybody, I'm going to be alone. I live in a culture where these things are not a norm. So I'm going to be the weird one, or I'm going to be The really she is, that's why she's divorced, or that's why she's separate, because look at her, who can tolerate.
She's a
So
feminist.
yes, I don't know what, and all that, while all that was going in my head, I still said that for my sanity, I need that. And I
Mm,
know, although in the beginning I got a lot of resentment and you're rude, you have no manners, and all that stuff.
mm,
But like you said, slowly and gradually, my cousins really started to understand that no, you can't mock me. You can't tell me I'm overweight. You can't tell me this is not right in me. You cannot, because if you do, I might, I wouldn't. I actually would never answer you back because that's dropping to
mm,
your level, but I would walk away.
mm.
So they understood that, and they didn't leave me. Nobody left me. My family still loves me. My cousins
Oh,
still love me. Nobody's actually left me. For me, that was amazing because I
mm,
never actually demanded respect. So if you wanna slap me, okay, slap me. It's okay. I'm fine. I'll give you this side. If you slap on this side, I'll give you the other
mm,
side. Go ahead.
mm.
And my daughter came up to me and she said, "Mom, can I say something?" And I was like, "Yeah, go ahead." And she's like, "You're different." And I was like, "What do you mean I'm different?" And she's like, "I don't know." And I was like, "No, I want to know. Are you saying it in a good way or a bad?" And she said, "No, in a good way. You're different because you seem happy." And I was like, "Okay." And you're different because now you you stand up for yourself.
Mhm.
And I was like, "Really? You think I don't stand up for myself? I do all the time, you know." And she's like, "Not like that, Mama. You always would just become quiet, just
Mm.
quiet. But now you're different, and I like it. I like that. You look amazing to me." And I was like, "Okay, it's
Way
good
to
because
go. Mm.
yeah, yeah." And and for my daughter to actually recognize that, uh, I really applaud her because she's been through a lot, and even then
Mm.
she's so amazing. I mean, when I look at her life and I look at my life, I think that she's phenomenal for what she's been through, yet she's so amazing. She's so loving. She's so understanding that I could have never been like her.
Well, you never had the chance to be like her, but
Mm,
presumably she takes after one of her parents. And
mhm,
an educated guess is that it has to be you, that you're the person who is encouraging her to be the person that she is. Because kids really are not stupid. They just
mm,
need to be held and allowed to grow, um,
mm,
and have certain limits put on them. But,
mm,
she's a smart kid and she gets that from you.
mm,
And it's lovely to get that feedback
Thank
that
you.
she
Thank
can
you.
see you're different.
hmm
And
I
it's
mean, I was
great.
really, yeah, I was really shocked when she said that, because you really don't think kids would notice that, but they notice
They
everything more
do.
than more than you think they do. That they do.
Yeah. And there are parents who gaslight them out of it all the time. One of the
Mm,
favourite refrains in my home was, "What do you know?" To which I go, "Nothing."
mm, mm,
But
mm,
actually, kids see everything. I know
mm,
when I look back on my family and my marriage, I've
mm,
got a huge amount of memories which um, were absolutely accurate, but I couldn't make sense of. So I just put them aside. Kids
mm,
do see it.
mm,
And that's why you can't stay in an abusive marriage and hope that the kids won't notice if you play act in front of them. They will.
mm. Right, right. Doctor, one of the other questions I wanted to ask you was, you see, like you said, now for you and me, and for many like us, what advice would you give to people out there? Because for me, uh, Well, the question will be in my answer, but the thing is, for me, when I understood that I needed to have boundaries and set
Mm,
boundaries and create boundaries, and I struggled a lot in the beginning with my parents, and I had a lot of resentment and animosity and hate towards them for not understanding, and I think that was something that I needed to understand myself, because when I really established and understood why I needed boundaries, I also understood that for my parents, they were not brought up, they were not raised, they were not brought
mm,
up like that. So if I'm going to hold that against them, then I'm no better than them. But then that makes me worse, because now I have the understanding of why it is essential to have boundaries. uh, so for me, I had to come in terms with the fact that, okay, my parents love me. They have
mm,
loved me. They've always loved me unconditionally.
mm,
And when they are breaking my boundary, it's not because they don't respect me, but from their perspective, they're coming from a place of love and concern. But
mm.
for me, I need to understand and not react, because I understand I need that boundary. So I'm not going to react, but understand, okay, I don't like it, um, but understand where they're coming from. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so.
What would you
So
say on that?
I'm not entirely sure what the question was in there. So
The
I,
question is, for a lot, I see that a lot of people, when they come up, they're just living where I was there as well, where they were
mm,
just living, where they were just blaming the parents, it's
mm,
because of you I'm like that. It's because of you
yeah,
I don't have boundaries, because of you, because you brought me up like that.
mm,
So they're just stuck there. Where
okay,
I was able to move forward,
yes,
they're just stuck there, not being able to find the reason. And for me, it's hard, and that's why I want you to explain it, is because how they need to come in terms, or understand where their parents are, because but the generation gap and all that.
yeah. Um, so I think there are lots of things in here, and none of us have boundaries because we were brought up by people who didn't have boundaries. That's how it happens. So
Mm-hmm.
then you have to establish your own boundaries. You've also got to discover what kind of relationship is viable with your parents. And in your case, culturally, they were invasive because
Mm-hmm.
they didn't understand that this was not a particularly healthy thing.
Exactly.
So that's unhealthy, but they weren't nasty.
Mm.
There was this thing about they were controlling to a degree, but they did care about your well being.
Mm.
So that means that you can take where they come from into account and rebuild the relationship accordingly. It's
Mm.
when parents are actively nasty and damaging that
Mm.
a boundary means actually I have to limit the amount of contact that I have with you because
Mm.
I know that you will damage me again to
Mm.
control me anytime
Mm.
you get the opportunity. And
Mm.
then you need to have boundaries which are not things that they can get over, which they
Mm.
can't surmount. Um,
Mm.
I've just brought out a product which is called the Boundaries Warrior Toolkit. And in there, I talk about the fact that not everybody you don't have the same boundaries with everybody. So if you have a parent who is unsafe to have a close relationship with, you clearly can't. You have to keep taking the boundaries back till you find a level where you might be able to relate with them safely. And if you can't, then you can't. If your parents love you and want the best for you, then you have a good starting point. Then they can go, well, yeah, she's a bit weird because she likes things differently, but she's mine and I love her and I can respect that. But if respect, but if respect is not something that they're capable of, that is truly toxic, and then you have a real problem.
Right, right. And especially if a parent is a narcissist.
Yes. Then you really have issues because they will work whatever hold they have over you. And that is not on. And they're very good at laying the guilt trips on you. You know, how can you do this to me? And
Right.
yeah. So it all depends on the relationship that someone has with their own family. What's the solution for you may not be the solution for someone else. A long time ago, I was working with a woman who had a difficult, well
Oopsie.
done. Nicely caught, Annie, nicely caught. I was having a conversation with a woman who'd had a very difficult relationship with her mother. And my preferred option when working with people is to enable them to reach a place of peace and acceptance with their parents where possible. And we sort of talked about her relationship with her mother, and we went on about this, and I was kind of thinking about moving towards this space of, and can we put the resentments in the past? And she absolutely could not. She felt that for her to feel at peace with herself, she had to go on despising her mother forever after. And it worked for her. I mean,
Wow.
I would have preferred a solution of the kind of that, you know, my mother was behaved unacceptably and I can let that go. That I would have thought might have been a nicer outcome. But in her case, it was not the outcome that worked for her. So it's always a question of people arriving at whatever outcome feels congruent with who they are and how they need to feel.
And I really like the way you said that with each person, whether they're your parents, whether they're your kids, or your partner, your friends, your boundaries are going to be different depending on the relationship you have, and a lot of other dynamics that come in. And I remember I had a client a few months ago, and she was a 65-year-old lady, and we, like you said, we discovered that her being miserable at this age so much was that her mom was so toxic. And her mom being 90, or I don't know, 93, somewhere around there, she said, I can't leave my mom, you know. But the more I interact with her, the more it kills me. And we came to a conclusion where she was talking every day, to where she went to speaking to her mom once a week or once in 10 days. And the first week she messaged me the second day, and she's like, oh my goodness, I'm so happy, I love you for this. And I was like, there's nothing I've done. I just threw it out there to see if you could do that and not talk to her. And it's just been 2 days. And I said, there you go. Now you need to establish and see that whether you want to talk to her every 5 days, every 10 days, or once a
Mm,
month.
mm,
And then I think she went with once a week. She calls her once a
mm,
week. And because I was like, how much more life does your mom have? Do you think you can live with cutting her off from your life? And she said, no, but I can't even live with having her in my life.
mm,
So we had to come to terms with she being happy calling her once a week. But if an emergency came, her mom
mm.
could call her twice a week or whatever.
Yeah,
So things like that do happen, and setting boundaries in every relationship is definitely going to be different.
yeah. You just have to put it where it feels comfortable for you. And boundaries are really about taking charge of the
Mm,
relationship. Somebody's got to take charge of the relationship.
mm,
And presumably, her mother could drive her mad any time she wanted before she put this new regime in place.
mm. Yes, yes.
So once you take charge of the relationship, and I know what I did with my own mother was make a mental note of the topics that I could talk about with her as well,
Mm,
because she was a woman who sniped.
mm,
She would always take a pot shot if she could get one in. So I would
mm,
talk to her about the weather. She's British,
mm,
she could talk about the weather forever. We talked
mm,
about the football because she loved football.
mm,
Um, there were another couple of totally neutral topics that we could talk
mm,
about, and I could
mm,
talk about them with her for as long as she needed to talk. Oh, we talked about her orchids.
mm,
She had orchids, and she could talk about them forever. So, what
mm,
would happen is that we would have a conversation which, from her point of view, was hugely satisfactory because she got
mm,
to talk. And
mm,
from my point of view, it was as satisfactory as it was going to get
mm,
because I did my duty, but at the
mm,
same time, there was nothing unpleasant coming my way because I was running the conversation and
mm,
keeping it to the neutral topics. And every time she
mm,
strayed, I took her back.
mm.
And that
Yes, yes.
worked.
And that works
And
a lot. And sorry, please go ahead. You was.
no, and the interesting thing was initially, I think I felt a bit concerned, but then I realized that her experience of the conversation was as good as it was going to get.
Mm,
So,
right.
she didn't have to sort
Mm,
of tell me that I was a failure as a daughter. She
mm.
just talked about the things she liked and thought,
Like it worked for both of
yes,
you.
yes, I think she thought,
Mm.
well, maybe my daughter's becoming almost human because she talks about the football now. And I didn't talk about the football. I just asked a question and allowed it to flow.
Mm-hmm.
I have never
Right,
talked
right.
about football so much in my life before or since.
Well, there we go. And that's really interesting to learn from, because I see that sometimes you get along so well, even in friends, you get along so well, but there's this one topic you touch, and the relationship just tears apart. And one of the things that I've come to terms with
Mm,
really is do not discuss religion, because
mm,
even in your own community, even with your own sibling, your own partner, it it just lights up a fire where it's always going to burn, and nobody's
mm,
going to be happy. So I
mm.
think, and not just that, when we do put boundaries, I think religion is also used as a tool to break your boundaries.
Yes,
A big tool.
it is.
Mm,
Um, I think it was probably ever thus.
mm,
I think for blessed people, well, I think people, and a lot of people in England don't have a religion. So, I mean,
mm,
nominally they're Church of England, but in reality they're not.
mm,
So that doesn't apply. But in any community where religion plays a significant place, that certainly
mm.
does happen. Um,
Absolutely. And for me to actually realize that again was another awakening for me, because learning from my own scholars and teachers, uh, uh, that this is not how religion is, and this is not how parents are supposed to be, and you can't do this, your parents can't do this with their kid, was like,
mm,
oh my goodness, I have literally been brought up with faith, a whole lie of faith, because
mm,
now I have to unlearn what I had learned and believed have to be absolutely 100% correct was
mm,
all wrong. And it took me years to detox myself from letting go of that, because that was not true. That was just the power play that
mm,
played such an important role in everything. Like in my part of the world, religion is used so
mm,
carelessly. Uh, uh, you're talking to a five. I mean, it's bad. It wasn't bad for me like that, but your 6-year-old is not listening to you, and then they go, "Oh, God is going to punish you for that because you didn't listen." Like, oh my gosh, what are you doing to your kids? That
mm,
is absolutely so damaging,
mm.
because
Yeah.
you are using God and you're using your faith to control your kids or your students or whatever.
Mm, mm,
Uh, so for me, it was really hard, but I think it freed me and connected me with my faith more before, because I was connected to my faith because I was scared so much,
mm,
you know. But now I'm connected because I love it, and that's my whole existence.
mm.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
But you've chosen your own brand of faith,
Hmm.
presumably, as we
Yes.
most of us do in the end.
Hmm. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
That's true,
Yeah,
true.
punitive faith doesn't do it for me at all.
Hmm. Right,
Yeah.
right, right. So, Dr. Annie, I heard earlier you said that you had put together a kit on boundaries.
Mm.
Just for the audience, what is in that so that they know and how they can reach out to you for that?
Well, that is my Boundaries Warrior Toolkit is precisely for people who want to have boundaries and get themselves respected by other people, know where they end and then someone else begins, and feel comfortable with asserting themselves. And it's a three-part thing. It's all about understanding the benefits of boundaries, understanding the blocks to having boundaries, and also understanding how you actually put a boundary in place and make it work. So it
Mm,
really gives you all the tools and the information that you need to create boundaries. And I think it's quite a fun resource. I mean, when I was writing it, I just thought, God, there's more of it than I thought, because there is so much to boundaries. There really
mm,
is, oh, you should just put a
yes.
boundary in place. No,
Mm,
it's a huge thing. It's about actually becoming the person who can have boundaries. It's
mm,
about learning how to be assertive.
mm,
And it's really quite practical. It's got a lot of opportunities for doing work on yourself. That is just filling in questionnaires and thinking the different thoughts that change things. And
mm.
that is available on my Instagram page and on my website. On my website, recoverfromemotionalabuse.com/boundaries. And on my Dr. _Annie PhD page, it's just it's the link in the bio. So you just click on
Okay.
the link and you get there. And yeah, and I'm pretty delighted with it because it really looks quite pretty in the end. But
Mm,
I've been getting a lot of enthusiastic feedback about it, so that's great. It's a
Wow.
brand new product. Yeah.
Dr. Annie, your final words for people who are viewing and watching right now. What message do you want to give to the audience who is here listening, who are struggling in creating boundaries or understanding why boundaries are so important for your well-being? What kind of message would you want to give to all of that?
Well, first of all, I would say that anybody can create boundaries. The only reason why you haven't created boundaries so far is that you didn't know that you could, you didn't feel that you had the right to do so, and you didn't know the steps to doing it. It's not some kind of magical gift that some people have and other people don't have. It's just that you weren't provided with the knowledge. What it will do for you is it will transform your life because it puts you back in the driving seat of your own life. Instead of feeling that you have to do everything for other people, you can actually do things for you. And the beauty of that is we only have so much bandwidth, all of us. And when most of it is given to servicing other people, we just don't have the time or energy to do what's right for ourselves. So it's really transformational. And I don't know how long during that I have been frozen for.
Saying, reconnecting. Okay,
So I
she's
don't,
back.
I don't
Yes.
know at what point you lost me. We lost each other.
Yes. I lost you when you started, right at the beginning.
Genius.
Oh.
Oh God, where was I? So, was that about the bundle or about what boundaries gives you?
What boundaries gives you?
It essentially puts you in the driving seat of your own
Mm,
life, possibly for the first time. It means that you have the time, the energy, and the confidence to have the life that you want rather than being at the mercy of everybody else who wants something from you.
mm,
So it's about really going on this journey of discovery, finding out who you are, and also finding out that you're a much more exciting and creative and dynamic and worthwhile person than you probably thought you were.
what
And
else?
kind of what's not to like about that?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It is. It is. It's actually
Yes,
falling in love with your own self and not knowing
absolutely.
all that time that you were really worthy and you are
Mm,
absolutely phenomenal and amazing person.
mm. Yes, and it's you.
Mm,
I think it's incredible when you suddenly have this sense of self when you've never had it. And
mm,
you know, first of all, you go, "Oh, I'm not too bad, am I?" And then it's,
mm,
"Hey, I actually like myself." And then you start showing up in the world just saying, "I'm here.
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Take it or
I'm
leave
here
it.
too." Yes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And the more you do that, the more people are inclined to take it.
mm-hmm. Yes, yes. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's scary in the beginning, like I said before. It's
Mm,
scary in the beginning, but then people do take it. People who love you, people who actually truly love you will never leave you. And people who are toxic, abusive will always have an issue with you, regardless.
yes. And with new people, you take charge of the situation from the beginning, which is a much more
Mm,
useful way to do it. Because you're not a control freak. You're just saying, I'm here. This is how I am. If you can behave in a nice way, we can get on to a degree.
mhm.
Makes life a lot
Somebody,
easier.
Dr. Annie, I have a question. Somebody is saying, how
Mm-hmm.
can you switch to put yourself in the driver's seat when you're used to putting others first? I feel guilty doing that.
Well, that's why you have to go through this process, which I do take you through in my boundaries bundle. You can't do it overnight because
Mm-hmm.
that's much too big a stretch. You have to get congruent with yourself. You have to learn about who you are a bit, and you have to learn the steps. And then it becomes a fun journey. So,
Mm-hmm.
in the state of where you are now, not knowing what you don't know, it's impossible. But as you learn the different steps, it becomes very viable. I mean,
and
this is,
and
sorry,
and it's also about learning to forgive yourself and learning and
totally.
actually and also actually healing from your past wounds. I think once you establish those two steps as well is when you will actually feel more secure that okay, I am creating a boundary. I'm gonna have resentment, but it's okay. I'll work on it. So you take like you take the step, it's not going to happen overnight, but you actually start to establish that this is how it's going to work.
Yeah. And you stop worrying about other people so much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I think when you're in this negative state and you worry about other people, you just don't believe that there's another way.
Mm-hmm.
And when you find it is, whoa, everything changes.
Mm-hmm. It's a game
It's,
changer.
yeah, it's fun. It gets to be fun. And when people realize they don't have power over you, it's game over.
Mm-hmm.
They either leave if they're that way inclined, and in that case, they shouldn't have been in your life in the first place, and they leave a space for better to come in, or else they stay and up their game.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really a win-win.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes, yes. Dr. Annie, thank you
Mm,
so much
a
for coming
pleasure.
forward and giving me the opportunity to share, especially with my side of the audience, that creating and having boundaries is essentially important for your well-being, your emotional, your mental well-being,
Mm,
and finding that. Safe place where you feel it's okay to be yourself. Actually, while we're wrapping up, I'm getting a lot of questions, I think. Uh,
mm-hmm.
let's see. I'm finding the person who I favorite saying and they want to make you feel that is, or somebody's just sharing how they are feeling putting up boundaries. Anyway, so thank you so much, Dr.
Mm.
Annie.
Lovely
It
to
has been
speak with you.
phenomenal. Yes, it was phenomenal once again. I have learned so much from you. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you
Anything?
for arranging this.
Yes, yes. Any last words you want to say while we wrap up?
Um, I think the only thing I'd want to say is that if you are in a bit of a black hole at the moment and you don't know how it gets better, all you need to know is that it gets so much better than you would ever imagine. You cannot even begin to conceive of it now, but it's such a good journey. Go
Yes,
for it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, good. Guys, she couldn't have put that better. On that note, we're going to wrap up. Take good care of yourselves. I hope that after this conversation, you have learned and understood that having boundaries is so important. Thank you. Take care of yourselves. Bye bye, Dr. Annie.
Bye, my wish. Bye.